Hello and welcome to the Single Today podcast. This is episode 20. It's called Singleness, Scarcity, and Abundance because there's two fundamentally different ways to approach singleness: scarcity and abundance. And when people want to meet with me to talk about singleness, I can tell very quickly which of the two categories they fit into, because when they start using words like regret and worry and phrases like, I feel like I'm running out of time and I feel like I messed up God's plan and all of that, that's all coming from a place of scarcity. So what I've learned over the years is if I can help them shift from scarcity to abundance, it changes everything about their singleness. So much more on that in a second. But first, a fun announcement to make. The next Single Today conference is happening Saturday, March 15th in Southern California. Saturday, March 15th, I'm going to be at the Crossing Church. Shout out to the Crossing Church in Costa Mesa, California, from 8:30 a.m. till 12:30. And we're talking all things singleness. So when I wrote Single Today, one of the visions and the goals was, man, if I could get single people into the same room to talk about the difficult parts of being single, to laugh about some of the frustrations, but also to celebrate the amazing gift that singleness gives us, and learn to celebrate this sacred subject together, that people would walk out of there feeling excited to be single today. And every time I've gotten to do that so far, it's been amazing. Well, the next Single Today conference is officially on March 15th. And so if you live in Southern California, I would love for you to come hang out. We've got all sorts of new content to talk about, and we're going to have a great time. So you can sign up for that. You have to sign up for it so that we keep a spot for you. But the link is going to be in the show notes. And so go ahead and do that. And if you live somewhere besides Southern California, but are interested in a Single Today conference, shoot me an email at info@ryanwekenman.com, and we can see if we can make something happen in the spring or summer. Now, on to episode 20. For this one, I want to do a Bible study. I want to read a story in John chapter 12. So if you have your Bible close by, open it up so we can read through this together. I am in Easter mode currently. With my job, I'm always thinking a couple months ahead. And so I've been thinking about like the weeks leading up to Easter. And because of that, I read John chapter 12 this morning, which is the story of Mary of Bethany anointing or pouring the perfume on Jesus's feet. And I thought that would make for a great episode of Single Today. And so here we are. We're just going to walk through this story line by line. I'm going to give a little bit of context, see if I can help it come to life. And in the middle of it, we're going to see, get a really clear picture of the difference between scarcity and abundance. And so here we go. John chapter 12. Starting in verse 1, if you know the story, it's kind of odd, but once you see it, it's going to change. It's just going to change. It's going to be a mind shift that's going to feel small, but I'm telling you, if you can get it today, it'll change everything about how you approach singleness. Now, John chapter 12, verse 1 says this: 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany. Why we call her Mary of Bethany. She lived in Bethany, where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Now, that's a pretty great verse. John chapter 12, verse 1 is packed. First off, Bethany was a town about 2 miles away from Jerusalem. So all of like the Holy Week events are all happening at the temple in Jerusalem. But about 2 miles away, a short 40-minute walk, was this town called Bethany. And that is where the disciples would keep retreating to at night. So it's like they would make the 2-mile walk in to Jerusalem, and Jesus would debate the Pharisees and the Sadducees. At one day, he turns over the temple and all this stuff. We can talk about that another time. But then he would retreat at night, and they would hang out and rest in Bethany. Well, in Bethany, they have some friends, Lazarus and his two sisters, Mary and Martha. And if you know the story, in John chapter 11, Lazarus passed away. And then Jesus showed up and he healed him. He brought him back to life. Now, Lazarus has two sisters, Mary and Martha. And you can just tell as you're reading that Jesus really cares about these three, like a lot. Like he really loves Lazarus and Mary and Martha. And as you read through the Gospels, you start to understand and see this really cool transformation that takes place in Mary of Bethany's life. In fact, if you've read Single today, you know where I'm going here. Mary of Bethany is the main character of this book. She has three interactions with Jesus, and I use those three interactions to highlight the main thesis of the book, Single Today, because the first one is all about how Mary and Martha, if you remember the story, Jesus shows up and is teaching in their living room, and Martha is like busy serving and helping and being hospitable, which is amazing. But Mary is sitting at Jesus's feet, and Jesus actually says, "Hey, Martha, I love what you're doing, serving and making this a great night." But Mary actually chose the better portion here. In other words, hey, you see how I'm training up Mary to go and be my disciple and calling her to go and do likewise? Well, the invitation is also for you, Martha, to sit and to listen and to go and do likewise. But as I tell that story in the book, I can't help but think Mary, who, by the way, we think was single, at least at the time of these Bible stories. There's just no mention of her husband. And so lots of scholars think that both Mary and Martha were single. As Mary is getting this call from Jesus to go be his disciple, I can't help but think that a lot of the regret and the shame from the past must have been surfacing for her, right? Because that's what happens. Like anytime God invites us to go do something radical with our lives, it's always the stuff from the past that's whispering in our ears, hey, you're not good enough for that, right? Okay, that's all the scarcity. That's how the scarcity mentality likes to try to make you think, well, I can't do this today because all of that stuff in my past yesterday, which is why part one of the book is all about how to heal from yesterday. But then the second time Mary of Bethany has an interaction with Jesus, it's when her brother Lazarus passes away. And as we see, she's weeping bitterly because she is terrified of tomorrow. She's terrified of facing the future without her brother and best friend, which is something that every human in our own ways, we can all resonate with. Death is not God's original design, and it's not how it was supposed to be. And it's scary, and it creates all of this fear about the future. And what I love about that second story is Jesus, yes, if you know the story, raises Lazarus back from the dead. But first he sits down with Mary and he weeps. He cries with her. He grieves. He shows us the importance of grieving loss, which could be a whole episode. Maybe we'll do a whole episode on that one, because especially when it comes to singleness, man, it's so important to learn to grieve the pain, or else it'll keep us stuck in a scarcity mentality. Well, then the third and final interaction is this one that we're reading today. That starts in John 12 and verse 1, where Jesus is he's just raised Lazarus from the dead, and a short time after that, he's back hanging out in their house, and he's back in Bethany, and we're about to find out that Mary and Lazarus and Martha are all there hanging out as well. Verse number 2, man, that was a lot of information just for verse 1. The Bible is so rich, and there's so much to it. There's so much context to it. And so I hope you're following along as we go. Let's do another verse. Verse 2, here a dinner was given in Jesus's honor. Probably, I would assume, because he just healed Lazarus and brought Lazarus back from the dead. So they're like, hey, we should have Jesus and his buddies over for dinner. Here a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha served, classic Martha, while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him. And so we get this picture here of Martha running around serving, which, by the way, Martha has the gift of hospitality. And the gift of hospitality is one of the best gifts that anyone could ever have. And for those of you who have that gift of hospitality, thank you for creating space for us and for being so hospitable and for gathering us and for cooking and for being the enthusiast who always is getting the introverts like me to come together and be together. Hospitality is an amazing gift. It kind of gets a bad rap in the Martha story. Jesus is not saying stop being hospitable. He's saying, hey, I love your hospitality, and also I'm calling you to be a part of what I'm doing. But to all the Marthas out there, shout out to all of you. So Martha served while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him, with Jesus. Reclining at the table was an important phrase in the first century. Today, meals are something that we do, like going through a drive-through between meetings. I don't know. It's like something that we do very quickly. I've got this like meal replacement powder shake that I like to make because it's efficient, because it's fast, because it gives me the nutrients I need, and it's healthy and it's affordable, but it doesn't take all the time. Well, in the first century, they wouldn't have had a context for that. Meals were a time for community. Meals were a time to move slowly. Uh, Meals were a time not to be approached with a scarcity mentality that we're running out of time and we better hurry up and add more things to our to-do list today, but rather from a place of abundance. Look, the Lord has provided food for us and people in our lives. Let's recline. They would literally lay down, lay on their side. Let's recline at the table and let's enjoy this. Reclining at the table was a way of saying, hey, I'm not in a hurry right now. It was a demonstration of security that I'm good here. We're good here. Let's just enjoy our time together. And I love that it points out that Lazarus was reclining at the table. I love picturing Lazarus in these days because he's already died. Like Lazarus was used to be dead and now he's not dead anymore. And so I would imagine he was just like the least rushed human being ever. He was just hanging out. He probably wasn't worried about a thing, especially knowing that Jesus was right there with him. Lazarus is probably thinking, this is great. Well, I've already seen the other side and that's great, but now I'm back here and this is great. And so let's just relax and exhale and enjoy some food together. Like Lazarus understood eternity. Lazarus understood that time is not finite, that there's no end to this. And so we're good here. So he's reclining at the table with Jesus. All right, verse 3 is the verse that we're talking about today. Then Mary, the other sister, right? So it's Lazarus reclining at the table. Martha is using her gift of hospitality. And then it says, then Mary took about a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it on Jesus's feet and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. Now, this was an act of extravagant, over-the-top, abundant generosity. Mary takes her most prized possession. We find out that the perfume was worth 300 denarii. A denarius was a day's wage. And so you do a day of like skilled labor, and whoever hired you would give you a denarius. So 300 of those is essentially a year's salary. We think it's always hard when you go, how much would have that been today, because of inflation and all the different ways that you can keep track. So if you look this up, you'll get lots of different answers. But typically it's about $50 is one denarius. And so 300, well, I guess that would be 15,000. Did I just get that right? $15,000. Some people put it at 40,000. Some people put it at 50,000. Again, it's hard to say. The point is, this would have been her most prized possession. It was worth a whole year's salary. And she just pours it out on Jesus's feet. It is the picture of abundance in the Bible. I would say one of the primary pictures of abundance in the Bible. Jesus has lots of pictures of abundance, like taking a little kid's lunch and feeding thousands of people with it. But the rest of us, we're not so good at the whole abundance thing, right? We're always thinking like, well, we should probably ration this. We should probably have enough for tomorrow. And meanwhile, Jesus was like, or just don't worry about tomorrow and just be present today and be generous today and give what you got today. Do you feel how even as I'm saying that, you're a little hesitant about that? I'm a little hesitant about that because I'm like, well, yeah, I know, but we should also like plan, right? And all of that. And Jesus just had this abundant approach to life. And by John chapter 12, we see Mary of Bethany take the same approach of abundance, where she goes, look, Jesus is in the same room as me right now. I'm going to waste everything that I have. I'm going to pour everything that I have to honor him and to anoint him and to let him know how grateful I am for him. I'm not going to hold anything back. I'm going to be all in. This is an amazing picture of abundance. But in the next verse, we see the opposite end of the spectrum. We see what scarcity looks like. Let's read verses 4-6. But one of his disciples, Judas, of course it's Judas, who would later betray him, objected. Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth, here it is, a year's wages. So Judas is sitting back there going, why would you just waste a year salary worth of perfume by dumping it on Jesus's feet, right? He sees it as a waste. He did not say this. I love verse 6. John just completely throws him under the bus. He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Judas is going through it already. This is about to be the worst week of his life. But he was the keeper of the money. And what we find out here is that he was always pulling a little bit of money out here and there. But more than that, underneath that was this heart posture of scarcity, was this worry that we're never going to have enough. And so you can be in the presence of the one who fed thousands of people with one kid's lunch and still feel like, well, because we use this perfume for this moment, we're probably going to run out. You see the scarcity mentality. When you have that scarcity mentality, it's never enough. Who was it? Rockefeller, I think, who was asked how much money is enough. He was like the richest man back in the early 20th century. Somebody fact check me with all this. It might have been early 20th century, and had an incredible amount of money. He was once asked how much money is enough, and he said just a little more. Right. In other words, you're always, when you're operating from scarcity, you're always going to need just a little more, just a little more, just a little more. And we laugh at Rockefeller because we're like, dude, you had enough. But then we do the exact same thing in our own life. And single people, we know this all too well. Hey, especially when it comes to time. I'm running out of time. Oh no, I'm another year older. Oh no, so-and-so got married before me. Oh no, so-and-so had a kid before me. Oh no, I just got asked to attend another wedding and I haven't had a date in 5 months. I'm running out of time. It's like we approach time with such a scarcity mentality. Well, Jesus says something so beautiful here that I want to spend the rest of our time on. What Jesus says here, it's the invitation to move from scarcity to abundance. And I want you to hear the invitation. He's talking to Judas, but hear Jesus giving this invitation to you to move from scarcity to abundance. Leave her alone, Jesus replied. It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. You always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me. Jesus goes to bat for Mary of Bethany. He goes, hey, what she did was actually really beautiful. What she did was actually this act of worship. What she did, single Mary of Bethany, what she did was an act of using what she has today, the gift that she has today, and giving it all to the kingdom of heaven, giving it all to this grander story that she had come to believe in. She's sharing what she has. And this is the message I love to preach to single people on repeat, is give what you've got today. Share what you have today. Singleness is a gift, and it sets you up to have all sorts of resources, namely time, but other resources like talents and opportunities and freedom. And you have the ability to use those gifts today. You have the ability, the opportunity to give those gifts to something greater than you today. It's just that so often, man, especially as single people, it's like we get into this scarcity mentality and we go, well, I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to hold on to this. I got to play it safe. I got to make sure that I have enough for me. I think being in a relationship, it seems to be one of God's grand designs for helping us get outside of ourselves. It's like when you have a family, you just think about them way more than you think about yourself. But when you're single, you don't have that baked into your day. Single parents, you have that for sure, but the rest of us don't. And so it's very easy for us to try to just provide for ourselves and hold on to what we need for ourselves. And when that happens, it's like that scarcity mentality becomes so easy to fall into. And what I see and what I love about Mary of Bethany's story is, as you watch her story unfold over the course of the Gospels and these 3 interactions with Jesus, she learns how to go, yeah, but today I'm in the same room as Jesus. And so guess what? I don't care if it's my most prized possession. I don't care if it's all I have. I'm giving it to worship Jesus. I'm giving it to honor Jesus. I believe that he is the King of Kings, that he is the Lord of Lords. And so everything at the feet of Jesus. And my goodness, single people, if we can just get that, everything at the feet of Jesus, sacrifice it all, give it all, lay it all down. You're in such a unique position as a single person, where you don't have a whole bunch of other people who need you to come through for them or need you to provide for them. And so you have this unique opportunity to lay it all down at the feet of Jesus. And I just believe that in light of eternity, we'll never regret doing that. We'll never regret just laying it all down. Acts of abundant, over the top generosity, because there's 2 different ways to approach singleness: scarcity and abundance. It's like we talked about in the last episode. Scarcity is grasping. It's feeling like you're running out of things and you got to hold on to what you have. Abundance is laughing. It's understanding that God's got you, that God's a good, generous Father who has a good plan for your life, which means you are freed up to be here right now. Less grasping, more laughing. Less scarcity, more abundance. This invitation, when you start to see it, is all throughout Scripture. And so the next time you're faced with a frustrating or challenging situation or circumstance as a single person, let that be a challenge for you to just note how you are operating from a scarcity mentality, and then go, God, I'm doing that thing again. I'm operating from a place of scarcity. Would you help me move to a place of abundance? Well, how would I approach this circumstance different if I was operating from a place of abundance rather than scarcity? Here's one. Your friend gets into a relationship and you smile and you nod, but deep down, you're actually like, oh no. Like I'm losing one of my best friends, and that's another person that like there's going to be less for me, less fish in the sea now, right for me. That's a place of scarcity. That's a misunderstanding of the goodness of God, and we all do it. But just relax and take a deep breath and bring that to God. Go, God, I'm operating from a scarcity mindset right now. Would you help me trade in that place of scarcity for a place of abundance where I can celebrate my friend and not just pretend like I'm celebrating my friend, but actually celebrating my friend and be very happy for my friend and want the best for my friend and that relationship, and know that doesn't somehow disqualify me or move me down the ranks in my own pursuit for a relationship. And so that's my challenge for you today. Simple challenge. Just go read John 12, 1 through 8 through a couple of times and just see this invitation to be less like Judas and more like Mary of Bethany. And so to close, I want to read this Mary's interlude, Act 3. I'm just going to read a part of it because I remember the coffee shop I was sitting in when I wrote this, and I think it might really help bring this whole story to life. And so this is page 233 from Single Today. It's Mary's Interlude, part 3. I'm going to start down about halfway. Mary's legs started moving before her mind fully figured out why. Pure joy pulsed through her veins as she dropped her plate and took off like lightning. She raced into her room, grabbed a jar of perfume, and rejoined the group in the main dining area. Her sister and brother saw the jar in her hands and eyed her suspiciously. They knew this was her most prized possession, her life savings, easily worth 300 days of work. But she didn't care. Money didn't matter. She learned a new way to live, a life of surrender, of sacrifice, of using the gifts she had been given to bless others. Mary broke open the jar, and the sweet smell of the oil filled every crevice of the home. She longed to experience that smell for years, but now she barely noticed it. Too excited to stop and enjoy it, she used every last drop to anoint Jesus' feet. As everyone stared in disbelief, Jesus simply smiled. He nodded, as if he understood Mary's motivations better than she could. An unbridled, unbounded joy began to well up in the depths of Mary's soul. A deeper joy than she'd ever felt exploded up from within and turned to laughter. Mistakes from yesterday, worry about tomorrow, none of it mattered. She'd spend the rest of her days generously sharing her gift with the world. Freely she had been given, freely she'd give. The last drop had spilled out of the jar by the time Mary finally looked up. Every eye was on her. Some, including Jesus, joined in the laughter. One man, however, stood in the back of the room, shaking his head. Mary knew the man. Although she said very few words to him, Judas spoke up, condemning her for her foolishness. Mary barely heard a word. She wasn't listening. She didn't care. She now knew you couldn't put a price on connection.